Good evening. The Hoover Board of Education meeting is now called to order. If you please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute, pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Ms. Goodwin, would you please do a roll call to establish a quorum?
Earl Hoover.
Here.
Fred Kelly.
Here.
Jill Gaines. Here. Deanna Ballman. Here. Amy Tosman. Here.
We have a quorum. You have before you tonight the agenda for this tonight's board meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? So, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The agenda is approved. Now we'll have our recognition time. Mr. Gass. All right. Well,
okay. We have two PE teachers at the elementary level we would like to recognize tonight. Ms. Alita Hoyt and Becky Peterson. I guess I'll have them come forward jointly since Asiford has recognized them, and that is a very long acronym for the Alabama State Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. So Ms. Hoyt here on your left is a PE teacher at Greystone, and she's been named the 2017 Jump Rope for Heart Coordinator of the Year by Asiford. So congratulations to her. And that's pretty big because it ties in, if I understand correctly, with the American Heart Association PE Teacher of the Year at elementary. Congratulations.
Does that mean she's going to bring back kickball?
Good question.
The red rope?
If Mr. Greg Bishop and Miss Melinda Bonner would approach the podium. These two came before the board last month. And Mr. Greg Bishop helps oversee the Hoover Helps program. I see his daughter Olivia here with us tonight. Thank you for being here. And right there is perfect. We've got limited space up here. Ms. Bonner is our Child Nutrition Program Director. So Hoover City Schools as a school system has won this award. It is a District of Distinction by District Administration Magazine, a national publication, and they highlighted the partnership between Hoover Helps and Hoover City Schools. So we want to congratulate Mr. Bishop on his partnership with us, and Hoover Helps works with a number of entities in Metro Birmingham to assist families who are food insecure, and it's a joint project with Hoover City Schools, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And this next one's a little awkward because it involves me. So I'll ask my counterpart with Shelby County Schools Public Relations Coordinator Cindy Warner to come forward.
To recognize the guy who normally is doing recognition, so that's kind of cool. My name is Cindy Warner, and I am here today as the president of the Alabama School Public Relations Association to recognize Hoover City Schools Coordinator of Public Relations, Mr. Jason Gadsden, KPR. Recently, Jason was honored with one of 3 professional awards given by ALSPRA to recognize the outstanding work and service of our members. Jason was awarded the Nez Calhoun Distinguished Service Award, which is named for Nez Calhoun, who has served as the Public Information Officer for Jefferson County Schools for 42 years. It honors an ALSPRA member for his or her commitment and dedication to the organization and to the school PR profession. Typically, this member has gone above and beyond the call to support ALSPRA and its members. Jason is certainly deserving of this award, having served in many capacities with the Alabama School PR Association, including 2 years as president on our executive board. He currently serves at the national level as the Southeast Regional Vice President on the Board of Directors of the National School Public Relations Association. In this role, Jason has traveled all over the Southeast, visiting other state chapters, as well as attending many INSPA board meetings to ensure the ongoing stability of our national organization. Nez regrets that she was unable to make today's meeting as she had a prior commitment, but I would like to read a short message from her. Nez says, I have known Jason Gadsden as an education television reporter and now a public relations colleague for many years. I am thrilled that he served as ALSPA president for 2 years, which gave him the profile to get the attention of our national board for INSPRA. Now he is serving as the Southeast Regional Vice President, representing a large segment of our southeastern states within the province of the INSPRA board. He was balanced and fair in his reporting for television. As a consummate professional, Jason has maintained those standards of journalism and his personal integrity in his state presidency, and now his Southeastern Regional Vice Presidency for INSPRA. I am humbled that my name is on this Public Relations Award, and I am proud that this year your Jason Gadsden is the standard bearer for it. Board members, you have a jewel in Jason Gadsden. Again, my congratulations to Jason and the Hoover Board of Education for employing him in his important work to help promote education. So I'd like to represent Jason with the Nez Calhoun Distinguished Service Award, and just to tell you board members that we, as state colleagues of Jason, we really do appreciate the work that he does on behalf of our state organization, and he's given tireless effort this year, actually probably the past 2 years, as Southeast Regional VP. It's been an exhausting job, and I know I appreciate your willingness to share him on the national level. So thank you so much for letting me be here to recognize my friend Jason.
I think you need to do a press release on yourself.
It's been very humble and not
I was about to say,
recognizing.
I did not write any of that, I promise.
But here it is, if you'd like to use it.
It's a boilerplate.
Isn't it?
I don't know. We are people swapping press releases. There we go. Next, you see on the screen what I'm calling intern of the universe, Madison Bauman. And she does have somewhat of a kinship to one of our board members. Is Madison in the house with us still? There in the very back. If she will make her way forward. Madison graduated from Auburn University with a degree in public relations this past spring and has given up her time freely this summer to pop in here to central office and help me with some duties and learn the ins and outs of public relations, of which I'm greatly appreciative. And she joined us for Institute a couple of weeks back, and I asked her afterward, I said, what did you think about Institute from a PR perspective? And she said, I think I want to be a teacher now. So we'll see if she goes back for another degree, right, Mom? Not happening. So congratulations to Madison. Now I will call to the podium Principal Don Hewlin and Ms. Marley Stevens for our summer graduates of Hoover High School.
Thank you. This is a great day for Hoover High School, Hoover City Schools. We have the honor tonight of recognizing some folks from Hoover High School, the class of 2017, who you cannot imagine how they persevered, how they had to struggle, were dealt bad cards. It was just an amazing ride for the folks that graduated during the summer. We had 9 kids that finished coursework during the summertime and are now official graduates of Hoover High School. And again, I'll reiterate, this was an amazing journey for these kids. And I'll start crying in a second, but it's for them to just dig in and stay with us and make it happen during the summer. It's a credit to those kids' character, their willingness to succeed, and they have made a lifetime choice by continuing their education and finishing that education at Hoover High School. parents, friends, the relatives, you were all part of that journey. So all of us from Hoover High School want to thank you for allowing us to be part of your lives. And I'm extremely proud of each of those graduates. So Marley's going to call those names at this time. We had 9, so we'd like to recognize all of them. Unfortunately, we had 3 that have been able to make it tonight. 1 flew in from New York, today. So special time for them. So let's celebrate with those guys, please. Gary, you'll come up too.
Again, I'm Marley Stevens, and I've had the privilege of being the counselor for the class of 2017. And so I just want to say I'm just so proud of you guys for just working so hard through so many different things that you had to face. I'm just so thankful that you didn't give up and you continue to persevere. And I know that the perseverance that you've shown over the past 4 years will serve you so well. And I know that you will all be so successful in life. All right. Starting with Gomden Aldukami, Billy Crabb, Emily Davis, James Hayes Elmore, Albert Nisha Griffin, and Francisco Osteguin. Then Anaya Nicole Cox. Jeremy Michael Hayes. Akinman Samaj Ramezra.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hewlin. I just want to acknowledge those students and join in with their families. We have some family members. Can we get our families to kind of wave at us, because you did lots of work too, right? So congratulations to those students. Madison, please allow me to say thank you so very much. Jason, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for the ways that you serve our school district. And I want to recognize Maryville. We've just received a letter from class organization that Maryville will be serving as the director of the Alabama Association of School Personnel Administrators on the class board of directors for this year. So many of our staff, teachers, students, just a great night to celebrate lots of good things happening with our personnel and our students. So congratulations also, Mary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public participation tonight? Okay.
Hi, Janet Turner with the Hoover City Schools Foundation, and I just want to update you on a few things that we've got going on. So first of all, we're hard at work. We have 2 new board members we're going to announce this week, and we're up to 20 board members, and great things are happening at the foundation. So we're working hard to support the schools and on a more significant level. Just a little brag on our board. We have increased revenues. We've doubled revenues and then doubled them again the past 2 years. So super exciting. And we're about to kick off our fundraiser, 2nd annual community-wide, district-wide fundraiser called Commit to 36 on September 14th. And the idea there is if we could raise $1 per kid per school week, $36, we could raise $500,000 to support our schools. So you'll be seeing a lot about that. I'd like you to mark your calendars for October 26th. We are scheduling a legislative forum to be held at the Winfrey, a similar format to what we did with the candidate forum last year, but this is all of our state legislators and senators and state representatives, really with the thought of talking to them about the importance of education and education funding. And we had a great summer. On July 17th and 18th, we invited about 40 teachers and administrators in to participate in our first ever Seed Lab, which is a new grant program we've started. And it's not about grants for things, it's grants for ideas. So we had a 2-day brainstorming, design thinking process led by Brian Phillips and Kelly Lane of our technology department. And that was an amazing 2 days, and those teams are gonna come on August 31st for really a Shark Tank style pitch to us for funding. So great things happening, and I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Action items, you have the minutes from the regular board meeting of July 11th in front of you. You have it for a couple of days. Dr. Murphy?
Recommend the board approve our minutes from regular board meeting July 11.
We have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for approval of these minutes. Do we have a second? Second. Any questions from the board? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda will be personnel actions. Mary, you have a work to do here. Dr. Murphy.
Mary and Christy both have been very busy. Board members, you have before you the personnel report, 71 individuals to be employed, 8 transfers, 10 leave of absence, 35 resignations, and 5 individuals we're asking for approval for liability for bus insurance purposes. Recommend your approval, please, of the personnel report.
We've had these for a few days, plus a recent addendum. We have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation to approve the personnel report.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions for anyone?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mary, do we have any past graduates that came back to teach with us this year?
Now, if you've asked me that before, I would have had an answer. On this particular agenda,
I'm telling probably.
yeah, probably.
Sorry.
We'll check on that.
Yeah, I'll let
That's a
you
great
know.
question.
We're always proud to see our graduates return. It seems like there's always 1 or 2 kids who went to school with my children, so it's fantastic.
We do. We have a lot that, you know, they even start out subbing and then they apply, but
Sure.
yeah, we like growing our own.
Any other questions from the board? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The personnel report is approved. Next item on our agenda would be the business actions. Dr. Murphy.
Requesting your approval on 3 items under business action. One is our monthly financial statement for June 2017. I would remind you that this is a summary of our financial statements and also our general purpose of financial statements that ended June 30. This has been reconciled with our bank statements. Would also share with you in this particular report that 87 or approximately 87% of our revenue at this point in time has been received. We are favorable in this area of our financial statements by $5.1 million from this time compared to last year. And I also would share with you that we spent $167,000 less comparable FY 2016 under expenditures. I would also say to you that our June expenditures are significantly higher than May, and would offer to you the explanation for that. And that is that we have purchased some buses. We've had AMSTI training and materials purchased. Our software maintenance agreements are included here. Resurfacing a couple of our tennis courts, our track and turf replacements that's happening at our high schools, re-roofing projects with Simmons and Rocky Ridge. So lots of expenditures as we're addressing capital outlay. The second part of the business action is to share with you our cash disbursement for June 2017 being $4,180,482, and our payroll for July of 2017 of $7,340,935, and to be exact, 49 cents. Requesting your approval on those 3, please.
Okay, do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation, for financial report? So moved. Okay, any questions from the board? I've got one. With all those capital expenditures in June, we're still net plus 5 million,
Year to date, yes.
which I would say would be great news.
Yes, we will, as we continue these capital outlay projects and we pay those bills, we'll start to see that shift a little bit, but we're proud of where we are, but we always say it comes with a little bit of pain when you're, having those kinds of significant savings.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor? Yeah. Let's just get one. Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for approval of these business actions?
We had already done it.
Okay.
Motion. Okay, we just need a second.
Okay.
Yeah, a second. Ms. Bowman, second.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
You're great, America. Any more questions from the board? Have a second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Business actions are approved. Next item on the agenda would be the resolution to authorize IRS requirements for Series 2005 bond refinance.
Yes, we do have a resolution asking that you authorize policy and procedures for our compliance with that tax exempt bonds. This is based specifically on our Series 2005 bond. We have Mr. Hush here if you need to ask him any particular questions, or Mr. Hush if you want to share the resolution, but I think it's a pretty straightforward expectation of our board.
Very good, Mr. President, should I?
Sure.
May I? Very good, thank you all, Mr. President. Great to see you all again. I'm Hayward Hush, been fortunate to have been bond counsel on these last couple of things. We actually prepared these, and I would like to make just a couple of comments about it before the board votes, if I may. These are policies, meaning they are not a contract. These really put in writing certain requirements that are obtained under IRS regulations and U.S. tax code for the issuance of tax exempt bonds, and they're requirements that happen primarily after you issue. You have some requirements that take place beforehand, which we've all taken care of, but there's some things that are ongoing. And what this does is just put in place formal policies for compliance with those. It is important for a board of your stature to have these, mainly because the IRS will ask. They ask on the front end, do you have them? And if you were to be subject to a random audit or something, they will ask several detailed questions. Do you have them? Best answer, yes. It gives the, just one less thing for them to bring up, and you certainly want to look like you know what you're doing, what you do. The good news is, with the issues that you have outstanding, there's virtually nothing you have to do post-issuance. So this is really a matter of housekeeping and best practices for a board of this stature, really. But very important to have them. And since we just did the last issue recently, the refunding, we think this is an appropriate time for you to have it because the IRS filing deadlines are about now. So it'd be good to say, okay, yes, we have them. But there's nothing in here that you don't have to do anyway, kind of puts it in place. And again, it is policies, it's not a contract, doesn't cost anything. It's just there to help you as a guide in the future, and also so we can just say yes if they ask, which they will.
So I'm guessing what we're gonna ask you in a minute is for approval on these policies.
Yes, sir.
Where are these things housed? Housed in your office? It's not a board or district policy per se.
Doesn't go into our policy manual, it's really just a resolution. There are 5 bullets in the resolution that we'll ask you to approve, but doesn't require us to pull our policy committee together for policy manual purposes.
I agree with that, Mr. President. It would probably better be called procedures, quite honestly, it is. But the industry phraseology is policies and procedures, so we just use that. That's what the IRS will ask for, so yes, that's what we say.
Well, thank you for all your help on this.
Oh, it's an honor and pleasure to be of service to the board.
Mr. Bush.
And this is part of, pardon me, Dr. McGowan, this is part of, we see this as part of what we just did. This is not a separate, it's just an ongoing thing that we do as part of the relationship. There's no extra calls.
Would you share those 5 bullets with us as a matter of resolution?
Oh, in the resolution itself?
Yes, our board would need to approve the resolution, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, which embodies the procedures. First bullet point is just an approval of the procedures and the policies as we've outlined here. And these are taken from IRS guidance, that's what it is. questions that they've answered, and things that are just good practice. It's very general. The second point is just a direction that the policies be filed in permanent records of the board. The third is to authorize the officers of the board to do anything else that might be required to put these in effect. I can't think of anything, but that's just part of our standard resolution, so they don't have to be repeated board meetings to accomplish the same thing. The fourth point ratifies anything, actions taken by any officer of the board heretofore in developing these policies. Again, that's just a matter of standard practice. The fifth one says the resolution takes effect immediately, which would be in your interest, given how recently we had an issuance. And that's all. In essence, it just approves the policies and procedures.
Board members, I'd like to request your approval of the resolution, please.
Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of resolution to authorize IRS requirements for Series 2005 bond refinancing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions from the board? Anyone? Have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda would be the September board meeting change date. Ever change?
Ever-changing board date. Board members, we did have a discussion last month about changing the date on our board meeting. We did not officially approve that, and because we approved the former date, we'll need to come to approve this date as a matter of business. Would like the board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, September 12, to be rescheduled for Monday, September 11 at 5:30. If you would approve that change, I would appreciate that.
Superintendent has recommended we change the September board meeting date to Monday, September the 11th at 5:30 here in the central office. Any questions from anybody on the board?
Are we gonna go back to Mondays from here on out, and it's just this for September?
The recommendation is for this particular Monday, but pleasure of the board as to any other changes. This particular recommendation is for the change because of the conflict with AASB, but we're open.
Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation for the approval of the September board meeting date change? Second? Second. Any other questions?
Dr. Murphy, I think you answered it. We have a District 5 meeting on the 12th, which is really the reason for this change.
That's right.
And District 5 is that you're president of this district, by the way, with SSA. But this is for the board members to go and hear what's going on in the district around us. The District 5 representative will be there, so it's 2 or 3 hours of colleagues from other districts being there. So this is the reason for the change.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions? No. You got a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? September board meeting change date for September the 11th on Monday is approved. Next item on the agenda would be the instructional support services contracts.
Yes, we have contracts before you board members for 2017-18 to provide educational services for our students with disabilities. And I would like to commend Claire Jones-Moore. She's done a great deal of work at looking at how we can consolidate some of our service providers, minimizing overlapping services, and it represents a savings to our school board of $162,000 by minimizing and preventing overlapping providers. So I am reduce those contracts by $66,000. I believe I should get that right. But again, a substantial savings. I want to be very clear about this. This is not that we are decreasing services to our special needs children. This is us providing them services, but being much more thoughtful about overlapping. You have before you actually 6 contracts. The first is Birmingham Speech and Hearing Audiology Services to evaluate hearing and monitoring our equipment and any specialized hearing test. And this money will come from local funds and it will not exceed $15,000. The second contract is with Pediatric Therapy Associates, again for physical therapy that is specified in the individual education plans for our students. and this contract will not exceed $67,000. A third is a contract with Dr. Tisha Goodwin, who is a clinical psychologist. She'll provide us behavior consultation, assist us in developing our behavioral intervention plans, and also providing support with crisis intervention. The contract for Dr. Goodwin shall not exceed $80,325. There are 3 remaining contracts, temporary employment contracts, or actually 2. One is a job coach, and this is not to exceed $10,000. The source of funds is our IDA and our federal funding, and an additional support from a psychometrist. Again, local funds at $55,000. Again, these services are to support our students who struggle with their learning and who have disabilities and need the additional support. My recommendation, board members, is that you approve these contracts.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation to approve instructional support services contracts?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions from anybody on the board?
So on these,
Yes.
on the vendor contracts, they're traveling to the school and seeing students there?
Yes, that is
correct?
correct. Individuals coming to us to serve our students on site. It probably is appropriate for me to note that the 2016-17 amount was $228,383. The contracts that I'm asking you to approve for this is $162,325, thus that $66,000 savings, just to give those total amounts.
Any other questions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The instructional support services contracts are approved. Next item on the agenda would be the emergency repair of the non-competition gym at Mr. G's High School, Spain Park High School.
Yes, we have a mess. We have a gymnasium floor that we have yet to really understand what has happened. But board members, I am requesting that you declare an emergency repair on the non-competition gym at Spain Park. The concrete slab in that gymnasium has actually started to heave up, about 5.5 inches is my understanding. And kind of hard to play on a court that's heaving upward. We assumed water, we assumed a lot of things, but to this point, after some boring and core work has been done, we don't know. What we are working on is to talk to those contractors and builders, but in the meanwhile, that conversation needs to be secondary to the fact that we need to get this gymnasium fixed in short order. It is a need. We were out there on yesterday and had a few minutes with Mr. G and took a look at that, and it is my request to you that we address this immediately and talk to builders and contractors and other folks on the side. The total amount is $81,340. It's not something that we anticipated, but we do have 2 quotes for the concrete work, that is removing the slab and pouring the concrete back into place. Of the 2 bids, the least amount on that one was $32,000. And then we'll need to come back and readdress the flooring back onto the floor. And we had 2 estimates on that, with the lowest estimate on that being $48,340 to give you that total amount. I may be missing something important I should have said. Tracy, may I pitch to you for anything else?
You got it. Do I have a motion?
Your good work. Thank you for sharing. Didn't see this coming, need to fix it, ask your approval.
Do I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation to approve the emergency repair of the non-competition gym at Spain Park High School?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Discussion.
Question?
As far as who's selling our concrete, because if it's a certain person, I might have to.
Yes,
Rather than
happy to
sell
share
concrete.
that. It is Newman, I believe. let me get that right.
Not USA.
Newman Concrete, and also for reflooring is AGF Inc.
Mr. President, Tracy,
Yes, sir.
we don't know what's causing it, but we're gonna put concrete back over it. We don't know if it's gonna happen again.
We've actually core drilled it, and then they went down 4.7 feet before they hit rock. And none of the subsoils were contaminated, or they found no groundwater. And I would like to do a couple of more borings in that area before, once we get the concrete out, I really want to get down into the subsoil. But we can't do that until we cut the concrete out.
I'm sure you, with this being a mining community generally, we've got some experts around here. I would think you've asked.
Yes, and I've reached out to 2 geotech engineers.
We obviously have excellent engineering students too. So I think they're a good project. Is there, there's no, I guess, warranty or to go back on contractors unless you.
I have reached back out to Harbor and to Core Construction, who was our project managers at that point. And I'm currently working with them. I'm in conversations with them at this point.
So they may come back doing no charge.
I would like to say they're going to help us, but to what extent, I'm not sure.
You know, it's interesting because in engineering school, concrete is a separate curriculum all itself. It's a science. I mean, people don't think you can pour concrete in the water and it will set up. It will. It might be interesting to take a chunk of that concrete and have somebody do some due diligence on it just to see if there's a concrete.
And I'm very interested, once we get the slab up, of what kind of subsoil. I know we did some boring, but I really want to get down into that subsoil and see if there's some plastic clays in there or what's going on.
So,
Yes, sir. I was just gonna ask how long ago was the poured?
2001.
2001? Thank you.
okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any more questions? All in favor? All opposed? The emergency repair of non-competition gym at Spain Park High School.
Thank you.
Dr. Murphy, the new business report, anything else you got?
Yes, wanted to remind our board that our budget hearing dates have been set and agreed to by you all. August the 29th, 6 p.m. will be our first, and September the 11th at 4:30 p.m. for that second budget hearing. I know that Tina and her department are working diligently to get us to this point, and appreciate their work. I've asked Dr. Simmons if she would give us a brief update on student discipline procedures in our school district. And followed after that, I believe we have Bob Lowry. Is Bob here? I'm sorry, Bob, didn't see you in the back. Bob's gonna just share with us briefly again about the district truancy program. And that's gonna be followed by Dr. Ron Dotson, who's gonna give the board an update on school enrollment. And then I'm gonna ask Tracy if he'll come back to the microphone and just give us an update on tracks and turfs and roofing and fill the board in where we are. So if we could just take that order, Dr. Simmons, thank you.
Hoover City Schools was recently rated #1 in the state and #5 in the nation for being the safest school. Although that's a great accomplishment, there's always room for improvement. So there's several things that we've done recently to work on our discipline procedures. When we updated the student code of conduct this year, the committee was very thoughtful about the infractions and the dispositions. Mr. Quincy Collins, principal at Trace Crossing, led a committee that developed a discipline referral form that teachers use to indicate what they have done to correct behavior before the students are actually sent to the office. This might be a conference with a parent or a telephone call. Then administrators have analyzed their data from last year. They've looked at their top infractions, they've looked at the grade levels with the greatest number of infractions, so all data from last year has been analyzed by the principals. John Montgomery, the assistant principal at Hoover High School, had the idea that we could collect what the teachers actually did to correct behavior before the students were sent to the office in Chalkable. So a feature was added by our technology department that allows us to collect that data now. A committee has also been formed that will look at our RTI for behavior procedures and revise that soon. Jim Collins in the book Good to Great
said that great vision without great people is irrelevant. We have great SROs and administrators and teachers in our school system that will continue to come up with ways to make us even better. Thank you.
Questions regarding some of our recent work, board members with discipline procedures and just trying to continue to stay at the top and get even better?
If I'm a principal of the school, is there a general overriding expectation of what a teacher should or should not do for, say, a kid that's disruptive in the classroom before she or he sends that kid to the office?
Yeah, and certainly we have some principals who are welcome to jump in. Depending on the infraction, now there are those infractions where you immediately call for help or get support, of course, but we really want to be thoughtful about trying to find remedies and solutions before it becomes an office referral. And so having a conference with the child, reaching out to a parent, seeking out the support of a counselor, are all generally accepted options. But principals, if y'all want to add to that, there's definitely it's not I'm teaching and you're not doing right and you just get out of here. We understand that not only are we compelled to teach and provide good instruction, but we are also managers of that classroom, and we're encumbered with that, whether that's good or not, or fun or not. But Don, with you, or I think I saw Mr. G, or any other principal share with us?
Let me tell you why I asked the question. The easiest thing to do is for me to dump my kid on you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's a good point. Fortunately for what we've been doing at Hoover High School, we're really firm believers in building a relationship with the kid up front. Try to do that on the front end. And so with 3 days of the first start of school, which is kind of unique, and I think that's better than going a full week, we tasked our teachers with really getting to form a relationship with our kids. So if you have to have that hard discussion with a kid or a hard discussion with a parent down the line, you've already developed a relationship and communication with that kid. We also require them to, either in email form, phone form, to actually contact every parent before the end of August. So those things are happening. So we try to develop that on the front end. But back to your question, the original question, really, I don't put this is what you're going to do to a teacher. We are here to help you as administrators. We're here to assist you, but you have to know where that line has to be drawn in your classroom.
Well, the ultimate power is in the classroom. You shut the door, you're in charge of all those kids. And again, it's an incredibly difficult job because you got the total spectrum of behavior, total spectrum of learning capabilities or lack thereof. And so being a teacher is a very tough job. So sometimes it does get fairly easy just to almost send you to the office. Well, that's okay too, but not like Don Hewlin and Mary G and everybody else who's a principal. I didn't have anything else to do in the office. But thank you for what you do. Seriously, this is a great step.
Mr. Lowry?
Thank you. Y'all are gonna have to forgive me. I've been doing residency checks since 5 a.m. this morning. I'm on the 7th cup of coffee, so I'm a little bit jittery. We're gonna fly, okay? So hold on. I want to go ahead and thank Dr. Murphy for the opportunity to be able to explain our truancy program. I'd like you guys to kind of see what we're doing and where we've been and what we've done. I came over to Student Services in 2013. Mr. Smith, Wayne Smith, our coordinator of Student Services, had one request. Please build a proactive truancy program for Hoover City Schools. There were some steps that were to be taken, but they were kind of directives by the state. So he wanted something that was going to be proactive. We shared what we developed in 2013, 2014 with our court jurisdictions, let them look at it. We asked for their blessing. And it's important to note that there was nothing like this designed anywhere. So what we created from dust, I'm going to show you where all of these steps are. And at the end of the day, we understand we're not going to be able to educate our students unless they're in the classroom. And so that's what this is. This is our opportunity to be able to get our students in the classroom, to be able to educate them, and we want to keep our Hoover parents out of the courtroom. There were a couple of challenges. Hoover is very unique in the state of Alabama. We are in 3 different court jurisdictions. We are in Jefferson County Bessemer, Jefferson County Birmingham, and Shelby County. And all three of those jurisdictions, while you would think that they work the same, they work very differently. So we had to design a program that would work with all three of those jurisdictions to be able to treat all of our Hoover students the same. I want to create just a little bit of a framework. I have in large letters kind of the big pieces. This is what is shared with parents, and I'm going to reference where that's shared with parents. But when they come to have a school administrative meeting, this section of our administrative code basically says if a parent fails to send their child to school or they do not attend on a regular basis, they could be found guilty of a misdemeanor, fined $100, and may also be sentenced to hard labor for not more than 90 days. We want to make sure that we're trying to have a good conversation to let everybody know this isn't daycare, this is school. We need your child here, we need to educate them. There are two other very important sections that I want to share with you. Section 162815 says that every absence must be explained. This is not a Hoover City Schools policy, this is in the administrative code. If that absence is not explained, section 162814 comes into play, which is a child being habitually truant. And they refer to that as habitual truant, not a typo, I promise. But that says that if a child has multiple unexplained absences, that the attendance officer must file a complaint before the judge of the juvenile court of that county that happened in. This is very similar to mandatory reporting with DHR. I don't get a vote, I don't get a choice, this is what has to happen. So, our program and what it looks like. There are several different steps that we take, and what I've outlined in gray, you will see these are steps that Hoover City Schools takes. One, when we do our online registration, there is a specific link that links to the attendance policy, so our parents have the opportunity to look at what that policy is, so they know what it says and they know what the rules are when we start. The second step that takes place is every time a student is absent, there's an automatic call that goes out to that family. If you have students in school, you know, 9:30, 10, you get that call, your child's not in school, if the parent hasn't blocked the number. Moving along, what we have is our registrars, or whoever's in charge of the attendance at that school, runs a report, and they get a listing of students that have 3 unexcused absences. When that happens, that letter goes home. And basically, in a nutshell, it says, hey, Mom, Dad, you're not violating any laws. Just want to let you know we've got 3 unexcused absences. Just want you to know if there's a breakdown in communication, let's talk now. So those are 3 steps that we do beforehand. But yet there are 3 more steps that we do. When a child hits 5 unexcused absences, we send another letter. And this is from the school principal saying, hey, we're in violation now. We need to sit down and have a conversation. Something's not working. And that leads to that administrative school meeting, which you see there is our second step, or actually our 5th step. At that meeting, that code that I shared with you, misdemeanor, fine $100, 90 days hard labor, that section of code is shared with the parents. If it is appropriate to do so, it is also shared with the student. We obviously would not do that with a kindergartner, first grader, or second grader. But when we're talking middle school and high school, it may be appropriate, but that is at the discretion of the principal. If we continue to have unexcused absences after that school meeting, and at that point they are enrolled in our truancy program, so I'm watching their attendance, they are invited to a district meeting. That's where I get deeper into the code. It is a district-wide meeting. Sometimes that happens on the telephone. Sometimes that happens as a district-wide meeting. And I let them know, look, Mom, Dad, this is where we are. This is what we're up against. After this, it's out of Hoover City Schools' hands. We have to follow that section that I already shared with you. We get under our last 3 steps. You notice these are red. These are red because these are state steps. There is an early warning court proceeding that happens in each jurisdiction. That is the court's first attempt in an informal setting to be able to say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, they have to go to school. This is what will happen if they don't go to school. The next step, the agency meeting, an informal adjustment, it's called an agency meeting in Shelby County. Jefferson County is called an informal adjustment. Those counties, not Hoover City Schools, but those counties have the discretion whether or not they want to use that. That would be another step. And you can see the 8 in parentheses. In a perfect world, we're talking 8 unexcused absences is when that would happen. It could be a little bit higher. Everything doesn't come in the pretty package of 1. Sometimes they're up for 3 days. And then that leads us to the last step, which is actually a complaint. And that's what that code said that I am required to do, is to go ahead and file a complaint with the juvenile court of that county. Jefferson County calls it a Vaxel. Shelby County calls it a GoPro. That is what I'm required to do, and you can see the section there. We make all kinds of attempts to avoid that, and as you can see, we've gone through a lot of steps. You can see I relisted those first 6 steps. Those are Hoover steps. Those are not state steps. Nobody asked us to do that, but like I said, Mr. Smith wanted a proactive approach to keep our families out of the courtroom. We thought there's a breakdown somewhere. Let's communicate with parents, find out where that breakdown is. The next couple of points, because I'm telling you this is a proactive approach, which are those 6 points, it's also their protective measures. We now, all of our students have access, or families have access to iNow. They can check their attendance 24/7. It is new for elementary schools to be able to check attendance. Middle and high has been able to do that from the beginning of time. Attendance is also listed on progress reports, and when we do the district meeting, I ask the parents, hey, call to confirm the registrar got the note. If the school didn't get the note, then it didn't happen, but you have to be proactive in parenting, please do that. So big question, we're doing all this work, does it work? So what I want to show you is this is data from one of our schools. It's a very fair representation of our district. Let's look at just the purple lines because that was last year. You see in District Watch, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 42 or so students that were in District Watch. After the school had the meeting, how many had to go to the next step, which was the district meeting? All of those boxes I showed you earlier, very low, about 5%. So the question is the school meeting effective? Absolutely it's effective. Well, how many people had to go to early warning court that year so they didn't get it when they did the district meeting? It's 0. So this data is showing us that the steps we are taking is effective. I want to show you one more graphic and I want to conclude with this. This shows students that had, number of students that had 5 or more unexcused absences during that school year by April 30th. Again, 2 different elementary schools, very fair representation of our district. What I'm very, very proud of, those schools work very, very hard, and Ms. Yancey works with us in student services, works very, very hard. You're seeing a downward trend. You're seeing a downward trend because those school administrators are taking the time to have those conversations, and unfortunately, I have to play Papa Bear, and we're having other hard conversations later on. Our goal, we want them to get their high school diploma. If they're not in school, they're not going to be able to accomplish that. So that's what we're after. Thank you.
Questions, board members about truancy in our school district and expectations for parents?
I might have a couple. First of all, parent fails to send their kid to school. I guess if you're 18 or older, you can't make your kid go to school. Is that the magic number?
17.
17, okay. And who makes the determination that the parent fails to send their kid to school? In fact, the kid doesn't go to school. I mean, it gets back to the question of unexcused absence. How do you define that term?
The code is very clear for us and provides all the guidance that we need. The board policy is a parent is permitted to write 9 parent notes per semester for excuses. So that does not require any doctor intervention. Beyond the 9 per semester, it does require some doctor intervention where a doctor's note would take the place of a parent note. If we do not receive a note, or if a note were submitted by a parent beyond a number 9, those would be considered unexcused absences, or if a note were not received at all, which comes back to that point of teaching those parents how they need to double check.
So we operate under the notion of 0 tolerance on this whole process that we defined here, the district process?
I'm not sure I understand that.
As an example, if you had 9, quote, unexcused absences, that's automatic early warning court?
Not necessarily. Principals do have some discretion over that, and we work with the families pretty closely. When it gets to that point where we're talking about a Vaxel or Vopra, I'm pretty well involved with that family, and I pretty much know all of the details of that family. And I've done at least 1 home visit, most of the time several.
And you and Wayne got a tough job in the district. I mean, I'm just saying.
We don't get Christmas cards.
No.
We're Charles.
But where I'm headed with this whole notion is there is that point of demarcation that once you enter something, a notion into the court, it's out of your hands. That train keeps on running and you can do nothing about it. What is that? Is it early warning court, that's where it starts?
Well, once it hits early warning court, they are watching, and my job is to make sure to report that. But we do have a little bit of wiggle room because if they go to early warning court at 7, they are not going to have charges filed at 8 or even at 9 unexcused absences. That comes much further after the fact. But there are no longer any Hoover steps after the early warning court in a prevention or proactive measure because we've already exhausted the 6 prior.
When you talk about 9 unexcused absences, I go back to this finite thing and the wiggle room with principals and all this. I would say if I had a kid at 9 unexcused absences in a semester, I would have counselors and intervention. I'd have people all over this situation. I mean, you and Wayne can't handle all these folks, and sometimes the problems that you guys is out of your scope of responsibility and training and education to handle. And I just don't want us to be so firm and so diametrically defined by a process. Yeah, you got to be fair, you got to be consistent, and that's important. But you're talking about kids here, and the end result here is the parents go to jail. The kids don't go to school, the parents don't go to jail. They can't take their kids to school when the parents are in jail. So it's kind of the essence of it. And so it's really, I'm not in the middle of it. So, but I struggle with the whole thing. I like the process and all that. I just figure out how do we better the situation, because your numbers showed nobody's gone to jail last year, but we got 2 people in jail already this year, or something.
That was one school's data. That was not the entire district's data, and
I just a notion of a parent going to jail. And granted, if they're not doing something they should be doing, they could be need to go to jail. I don't know, but there's a whole bunch of people who.
Let me help you feel just a little bit better. I don't want to give out any magic numbers, but I will tell you that when the courts say that we should be filing our GoPros and our Vaxels, which brings about that charge that you're talking about and concerned about, there is not a family that has ever had it filed at that immediate number. So when you're asking or suggesting wiggle room, there's a lot of wiggle room in there. A lot of wiggle room. There is nobody that has that charge filed on them immediately when they hit that magic number.
I'm saying that there's no question there are probably low-life parents who just let this thing go. I got that, but we need to defend parents as well as the kids and get them to do what they should do. I mean, my wife used to say the easiest thing in the world she can do it. She can figure out how a kid learns to teach them, but she can't tell parents how to be parents. And that's always the crux of the matter.
Let me leave you with one more piece that will help make you feel just a little bit better. There is talk about people going to jail. It is a misdemeanor charge. When that charge happens, it does come with a warrant and a bond and all kinds of other things. However, when I have been in front of a judge, that sentence has not been imposed as long as they do better after that point. So while the possibility is there, I have never seen with any of my families where a family has come before the judge for the first time and been placed directly in jail.
Even in one of the 3 jurisdictions?
Even in one of the 3 jurisdictions with my experience.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's so complicated. Jill can be all over
I
this.
can give a testimonial.
It's just when the kid's got a problem and the parent gets thrown in jail, then the kid's problem is double down. Because it's embarrassing and the whole 9 hours.
Let me address that just a little bit. Our expectation, and we've had this conversation with our staff, and this is our commitment, and that is, 1, we're going to follow the law. And 2, we're going to be exceptionally thoughtful about the child and why is this child not going to school and what can we do to support them and to intervene with them, and those are our expectations. We've got to follow the law, but we also want to know why is this child missing school, and we do all due diligence to make sure we try to uncover that. Sometimes we can determine what's going on, and sometimes it's just deep-rooted, and you're right, we're ill-equipped sometimes to meet some of those emotional or struggling needs that might be resulting in that student not coming to school. But we're compelled by law to make sure that we are addressing truant students. It's just not an option. And so when I think in a kind and thoughtful way about parents who sometimes struggle to get their children to get up, to get to school, to be timely, and to do that every day. I have a heart for that as a parent. But I also don't want to see this gentleman or anybody else on our staff going to jail when they fail to do what they're compelled under the law to get done.
I don't think anybody's, not to be controversial about this, I don't think anybody's questioning that. Because Bob has just described that there is enough leeway and there's enough flexibility in working with everybody that we're not so dogmatic that there's a zero tolerance policy we operate on. So that's good. It's just disturbing to me that parents can't be parents and sometimes we can't fix that.
Well, I have to say that, okay, because one thing, being a part of the juvenile system for so long, and Wayne's my friend, I can tell you that, we've seen each other a lot, but there's a lot of jurisdictions, Hoover City Schools does not go to early warning, where there's some jurisdictions that immediately go to early warning and just dump it on the court. If I see, or when I saw him in court, there was an underlying welfare neglect issue that's going on. It's not a witch hunt after a certain parent. I've never seen the Hoover City school systems do that. So I like the fact that y'all have defined it, your steps more clear, but y'all have been doing an excellent job for a long time. I'll have the compliments to our truancy area.
You guys do have the toughest job, and you do a great job, not only with truancy, but with all the other things, trying to shake down all these people who are here that shouldn't be here, that kind of stuff. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Dr. Dotson, would you talk to us enrollment and one other thought that I was going to share, but you probably will do it best, and that is just a little snippet about solar eclipse, which is a point of concern for some in our community that I want us to just take a minute to talk about.
Different topics, but okay. Before a student can be absent or truant, they have to be here at least one day, right? And so far, as of today, we've had 13,828 saints come marching in. That is within 0.2% of what we predicted for this time of the year. We, of course, still have families moving in. That's normal for the first 2-3 weeks of school. We have about 116 students who enrolled who we've not seen yet, and of course schools are reaching out to those families. Some of them are traveling and trying to find them and find those children and get them in place. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule in terms of the prediction for the year. We did anticipate, we've had 3 years of relatively flat enrollment, but given the progress in construction that's begun happening with the increase in the economy, we anticipate getting eventually about 139 more students this year from new home construction, and we may be a little bit ahead of schedule on that. So we'll have to watch that as the year develops and see how that's coming. So I'm glad that the students have shown up. They're learning. It's the 5th day of school. It's looking good. With regard to the solar eclipse, that is happening next Monday, the 21st. We have several schools that have made very elaborate plans related to that. They've been planning this for a long time, different student groups and activities. And of course, we know that there are precautions that have to be taken. We have shared information with schools that's going to be shared with parents about the things that we're doing in terms of advising the children. Some schools have purchased classes. Some schools have tried to purchase classes, and of course you can't right now. They're pretty much sold out nationwide, but there's other ways to observe this through even as simple as taking 2 pieces of paper and putting a pinhole in one piece of paper and projecting that onto another piece of paper. That's my favorite way of doing this. This is a really special activity. It's the first time we've had a solar eclipse in the mainland U.S. since 1979. I was in the 9th grade that year. I remember it, and I think that played at least some part in my interest in science at the time and eventually becoming a science teacher. So there's no telling what this experience will mean for children on Monday and what will happen. I have to say, in a glass half empty context, the weather predictions currently call for cloud cover. So we have to temper our enthusiasm a little bit, because we may be watching this on television. But it is a special event. It'll happen again in 2024. But it'll be a little bit further to the north of us when that happens. So this is a special time. We do have to ensure that our students are safe. Schools have plans in place so that if they're outside, there will always be an adult watching the students to make sure that they're following the safety precautions, and of course making sure that whether they're using the pinhole cameras or the eyeglasses, that they're staying safe in that practice. So, any other questions?
All of our schools are turning into the central office tomorrow their plans for how they will address the solar eclipse. So, we see it as a terrific learning opportunity. We obviously know that it comes with some risk, and there's angst among many, and those are legitimate. We acknowledge those, and we do have an opt-out. Cindy's created for us an opt-out option if parents do not want their children to go outside with those glasses, or otherwise they can be exempt from that. And also any of our parents who choose to check their children out because they prefer to have that experience with their children, that will also be excused. So we're trying to be very thoughtful about how parents can control this to the extent they wish to do so, with their children checked out, excused, or to opt out, and then we'll find other appropriate activities that will be surrounded by this whole solar eclipse concept, but not have them outside participating at that level. So we are pleased that we're going to use this as a learning opportunity, but we do understand the inherent danger that's associated. Wanted to just share with you that SSA did a survey, and their questions were how many of our school districts are going to allow students to view the eclipse or stages of it using appropriate eyewear. There were 90 school districts that responded, and 60% of those school districts are going to allow their students to do just that. Allowing the students to watch the eclipse on TV only, there are 35% of that 90 that's going to do that option. Close the school entirely or early, 11% of the 90 is going to close school and let that be a day away. So different schools have chosen different things. We are comfortable with where we are, though we want to be careful. And 91% of the schools are going to excuse their students with an excused absence if the parent chooses to have that experience with them at home. So we wanted to answer your questions. I know there's a lot of concern in our community, and it's legitimate. There's a lot of social media surrounding this, and so we just want to talk about that a minute with you if you have questions.
About what time is it for our
Ron's got
area?
it to the exact minute. Tell us.
It's gonna start at 12 noon. It'll run till 3 p.m. The peak will be about 1:31 in the afternoon. During that hour from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock will be the time when you'll see the most inclusion. Again, it won't be a total eclipse here in Birmingham, Hoover area. It'll be about 93% inclusion.
Like Clarksville or Nashville, and that's about the same.
Nashville's the biggie.
Nashville's gonna be a very crowded place on Monday. Yes, that's where everyone's kind of flocking to.
I guess, Mr. President, I speak, on the elementary kids that may not be able to follow instruction, I'm sure that's taken into consideration.
That's why there's gonna be, there'll be an adult with the students, but there'll always be, they'll be swapping off roles where there's always an adult watching the children, not watching the son during that time.
We hope.
Yes.
Not be one.
Curiosity factor kind of.
Just a couple of other things. Board members, we continue to have conversations with Pelham City Board about the River Chase Middle School piece. There are a couple of occasions that I want to share with you that you might want to come out and join us if your schedule allows. On August the 22nd, 8:30 to 11, we plan to be on that campus. We're going to have our high school principals and a group of teachers who are going to join us out there. We want to be on site, let them see that site, let them brainstorm with us. about that facility and best use of that facility. So that's on August the 22nd, 8:30 to 3 o'clock approximately. And then on August the 24th, Workforce Development is going to join us out there. A number of business and industry have been at the table with Deborah Smith, Dr. Smith, and with us already to talk about how they might work and collaborate with us. And one of those stopping points for that whole process is, so where's this going to happen? Well, you know, this is certainly a viable thought that this might be a location for that. So on the 24th, Business and Industry, Workforce Development joining us. Ron, I believe that's a start time of 9 o'clock, and that's not going to be an all-dayer, but we'll probably be out there an hour or two working with workforce development folks. So just wanted to share that with you also. Artist on the Bluff, you all granted me permission to, or looked at that lease that we had before you last month, and you agreed to that lease with a few, 2 or 3 things that I said. These are conversations that we're still having with our attorney and that the city's attorney was having with our attorney. And our city council has stayed that decision at their last council meeting, and that stay, I believe, will carry them until Monday evening, at which time perhaps they'll bring that back to the table. So at this point, Artist on the Bluff is a follow-up. Conversations have continued. The city council is taking a look at that. It was stayed until this Monday evening. We had a meeting on yesterday about facility use and more specifically about fee schedules. And lots of good conversations came out of that. There were some requests from our personnel who use our facilities for camp purposes. And that was for us to look at rather than rather than an hourly rate, maybe looking at more of a daily rate or a per day basis. Not passing all the fees over to those who are running camps, like do we really have to pay a portion of the utilities if the utilities are still on? Do we really have to pay a part of the insurance if you got to pay the insurance anyway? So those conversations occurred yesterday. Also, those individuals who have LLCs, is it better for us to work with them as an LLC or to work with them as a Hoover School employee? So again, I appreciated all the individuals who came to the table with us. Want you to know we just continue to be thoughtful about that. This is not a fundraising project for the central office. All of the money that comes into the schools for use of facilities stays in the school. We just want to have a fair and reasonable plan in place, fee schedule in place, and again, good conversation about that. I want the board to also know that we've been at the table with the YMCA to talk to them a little bit about after-school care. YMCA has a very strong curriculum where they have a focus on STEAM. We're very impressed with the program that they have in place, and I just want you to know we're having conversations with the YMCA. Is the after-school care something we keep under the auspices of the school district, or is this a place for us to collaborate with the Y? And that's yet to be determined, but I do want you to know that we're engaging in that conversation also. And then lastly, I would share with you that several of our principals have reached out to us and they've just commended the start of the school year in their respective schools. And I acknowledge the leadership of principals who have planned well during the summer for that first day of school. It has been a terrific start to the school year. You're always going to have some congestion around schools with parents dropping off. You're going to have a few late buses because we're trying to get kids on the bus and get our routes down. So beyond those usual hiccups that you might anticipate with the start of school, it's been an awesome, terrific start to the school year, and my commendations to our schools, our leadership in particular, for such a great start to the school year. And that concludes my thoughts from Superintendent's report.
Thank you. The next regular scheduled board meeting will be on Monday, September the 11th at 5:30 here in the central office. The meeting is adjourned.
13 minutes ago,